Beneath the gleaming marble of ancient Rome flowed a river of secrets. While citizens walked on sunlit streets paved with grandeur, an entirely different city thrived in the darkness below. This was the realm of the Cloaca Maxima, the Great Sewer, a masterpiece of engineering that shaped the empire's destiny. By the end of this journey, you will understand how this hidden network held the key to Rome's power and public health for centuries. We will uncover why a society so advanced still dumped its waste into a sacred river, and how the ghosts of its maintenance crews still haunt archaeology today. What forgotten story from beneath your own city would you most want to hear? The story begins not with a sewer, but with a swamp. The valley that would become the Roman Forum was a waterlogged, disease-ridden marsh, a place utterly unfit for a city of stone and law. The first great engineering challenge of Rome was not to build up, but to drain. This monumental task fell to the city's Etruscan kings, particularly Tarquinius Priscus in the 6th century before the Common Era. His vision was not about managing human waste, at least not yet. It was about land reclamation. He ordered the construction of a massive open-air channel, a public work so ambitious it would define the city's center for 1,000 years. They called it the Cloaca Maxima, the greatest sewer. Think of it less as a toilet and more as the world's most important ditch. This channel, lined with stone and wide enough for a man to walk through, was designed to collect runoff from the surrounding hills and channel it directly into the Tiber River. By draining the marsh, they created the dry, stable ground upon which the temples, courts, and markets of the Forum would rise. This was engineering in its most foundational form, literally creating the ground for civilization to stand upon. It set a powerful precedent for Rome's future. Here was a project commissioned by a ruler, built for the public good, that reshaped the very geography of the city. It proved that large-scale infrastructure was not just possible, but essential for urban life. The Cloaca Maxima began its life as a simple drain, but its true legacy was the space it created, the blank slate of dry land upon which the heart of an empire would be built. That simple ditch, however, was destined for a far grander purpose. The Cloaca Maxima evolved into a multi-purpose marvel, a hidden artery that performed functions vital to the city's survival. Its primary role, of course, was to carry away waste, but to think of it merely as a toilet is to miss its genius. It was Rome's ultimate storm drain. When torrential rains poured from the 7 hills, the sewers captured the deluge, channeling it swiftly to the Tiber and preventing the low-lying Forum from reverting to the swamp it once was. This was flood control on an imperial scale. Furthermore, the system served as the exit pipe for Rome's celebrated water culture. The overflow from countless public fountains, the drained water from the massive public baths, all of this used water needed somewhere to go. The sewers provided that constant, reliable outflow, ensuring that the city's famous aqueducts did not simply turn neighborhoods into lakes, but the uses grew even more intriguing, spilling into the realm of shadow and rumor. The dark, navigable channels became clandestine highways. Historians whisper of everything from smuggled goods to spies using these subterranean passages to move unseen beneath the feet of the authorities. It was a hidden network for hidden activities, a literal underground economy. Perhaps its most profound function, however, was invisible. By constantly moving water, the sewers eliminated stagnant pools where mosquitoes could breed. In a time before germ theory, the Romans had accidentally engineered a critical public health measure, directly combating the malaria that had plagued the marshland. This was not just convenience, It was a matter of life and death for the urban population. Finally, the Cloaca Maxima became a powerful symbol. Its relentless, engineered flow represented Roman order, imposing its will on chaotic nature. It was a testament to the idea that civilization meant control, that even the most fundamental elements of the natural world could be channeled, managed, and put to use for the empire. This network was so much more than a drain. It was a foundational pillar of urban life, operating silently in the dark to maintain the glory in the light above. The true marvel of this system was not its purpose, but its permanence. Building a sewer that could last for centuries beneath the weight of a city required engineering on a staggering scale. The Romans did not just dig tunnels, they constructed an underworld of stone and mortar. The primary material was a revolutionary substance called opus cementitium, what we know as Roman concrete. This was no ordinary mixture. Its genius lay in a special ingredient, volcanic ash from the region of Passageways. When mixed with lime and rubble, it created a paste that could be poured into wooden frames. But here is the mystery: it actually hardened and grew stronger when submerged in water, a perfect property for a sewer. This concrete formed the core of the vaulted ceilings and walls, a resilient skeleton that could withstand immense pressure and the constant flow of water. Over this concrete core, they laid a skin of precisely cut stone. The Romans favored local materials like tufa, a soft volcanic rock that was easy to quarry and shape, and the harder, more elegant travertine. These blocks were fitted together with astonishing precision, but the real secret was in the joints. The mortar used was a waterproof mix, often incorporating crushed pottery or brick dust, creating a seal so effective that many sections remain intact to this day. The entire system was a masterpiece of gravity-fed design. Surveyors, using simple but effective tools like the courbates, a type of leveling table, ensured every section of tunnel had just the right downward slope. Too steep, and the water would rush away too fast, leaving solid waste behind. Too shallow, and everything would stagnate. They achieved a perfect, gentle gradient that used nature's own force to keep the city clean. Now, consider the human cost of this precision. This was not built by machines. The labor force was a massive army of slaves, prisoners of war, and even Roman soldiers on engineering duty. These men worked in shifts, day and night, in conditions we can scarcely imagine. They excavated the earth by hand under a living, breathing city. They hauled massive stone blocks through narrow, muddy trenches. They mixed and poured concrete in the damp, dark confines of the growing tunnels. Some of the main collector sewers were built to a colossal scale, wide enough and tall enough for a loaded wagon to pass through. This was deliberate, not for traffic, but for maintenance. It meant teams of workers could actually enter the system to clear blockages and make repairs, a foresight that speaks to the long-term thinking of Roman planners. Every stone laid, every barrel of mortar mixed, was a testament to both brutal labor and brilliant engineering, a hidden world built by the hands of the unseen to serve the glory of the world above. Of all these hidden channels, one name echoed through history: the Cloaca Maxima itself. This was the queen of the sewers, the original artery that began it all. Its path carved a secret geography through the city's heart, starting at the lowest point of the forum, collecting the runoff from the surrounding hills, and snaking its way through the bustling Suburra district before finally disgorging its contents into the Tiber River near the Forum Boreum, the ancient cattle market. For centuries, it began as a deep, open-air canal, a stark divide cutting through the urban landscape. But as Rome grew more crowded and the odors more potent, the decision was made to enclose it. Massive stone slabs were placed across the top, vaulting it over and burying its flow beneath the streets, transforming a public ditch into a private, subterranean river. This act of covering it was a profound shift, moving the city's necessary filth out of sight and out of mind, a literal paving over of a messy reality. To the Romans, this was not just infrastructure, it was a divine force. They deified the Cloaca Maxima, making offerings to the spirit of the sewer to keep the waters flowing freely. This reverence speaks volumes. They understood that their entire urban existence depended on this hidden, humming system. Its endurance is perhaps its greatest testament. While imperial Rome fell, the Cloaca Maxima never truly stopped working. Sections of its original stonework, laid over 2,000 years ago, still function today as part of Rome's modern storm drain system. You can still see its mighty, arched mouth where it empties into the Tiber, a silent monument to pragmatic engineering that outlasted empires. Such a legendary place naturally spawned its own myths and tales, adding a layer of eerie mystery to the engineering. One persistent legend spoke of a giantess, a monstrous female spirit who haunted the deepest, oldest stretches of the sewer, a guardian or perhaps a punishment for those who dared to venture too far. And then there are the stories of the emperors themselves. The historian Suetonius claims that the notorious Emperor Nero, in a display of either grotesque humor or detached curiosity, once cast a fishing line into the flowing muck of the Cloaca Maxima, supposedly pulling up a prized fish. Whether fact or slander, the image is powerfully strange, a ruler of the known world engaging with the empire's bowels, a reminder that even the most powerful man in Rome was connected to this underworld. These stories transform cold stone and flowing water into something alive with human fear, curiosity, and dark imagination. The Cloaca Maxima was not alone in the dark. It served as the mighty trunk of a vast subterranean tree, fed by a branching network of veins that reached into every district of Rome. These were the collectors, the main sewer lines that channeled waste and water from entire neighborhoods. They were the secondary arteries, smaller than the great sewer itself, but still monumental in scale, often large enough for a person to walk through upright. They gathered everything, from the runoff of side streets to the outflow of public fountains, and funneled it all toward the central flow of the Cloaca Maxima, which then carried the collective burden to the Tiber. At the very tips of this network were the countless entry points. For the average Roman citizen, this meant the public latrines, the foraci. These were often spacious, multi-seat facilities, social spaces in their own right, with a constant stream of fresh water from an aqueduct flowing in a channel at the user's feet, sweeping waste directly into a waiting sewer line below. Wealthy private homes, the domus of senators and merchants, also connected to this system. They used terracotta or lead pipes, often embedded in their walls and floors, to carry wastewater from kitchens and private toilets down into the street-level sewers. This was not a luxury, it was a standard of urban living, a direct link from the private residence to the public infrastructure. The true ambition of this network is best seen in how it served Rome's grandest public spaces. Take the Circus Maximus, the colossal chariot racing stadium that could hold over 150,000 spectators. Such a massive venue, with its own bath complexes and food stalls, generated an enormous amount of waste and runoff. The Romans did not leave this to chance. They built a dedicated collector sewer, the Cloaca Maximi, which ran beneath the length of the stadium. Its sole purpose was to drain the circus, ensuring the track and seating areas did not flood. and efficiently carrying away the refuse of 100,000 people on a race day. This was hydraulic management on a breathtaking scale. It means the engineers were not just reacting to need, they were proactively designing the city as a single, integrated organism. The roar of the crowd in the Circus Maximus was directly connected to the silent, steady flow in the sewer beneath it. Every major public venue, from the baths of Caracalla to the theaters, was planned with this underground reality in mind. The city above, with all its noise and grandeur, and the city below, with its relentless, ordered flow, were two halves of one brilliant, functioning whole. But who managed this sprawling, hidden world? The answer reveals a layer of Roman genius often overlooked: the bureaucracy. The sewers were not a forgotten afterthought. They were under the direct supervision of a dedicated government office, the curators cloacarum. These were the overseers of the sewers, high-ranking officials appointed by the emperor or the Senate. Their existence proves that Rome understood infrastructure as an ongoing responsibility, not a one-time project. The curators had a critical job. They managed the budget for maintenance and new construction, drawing funds from the state treasury and even soliciting private donations from wealthy citizens who understood that a functioning city benefited everyone. Their authority was immense and intrusive. Roman law granted them the right of access, meaning they could enter any private property, from a humble insula apartment block to a senator's luxurious domus, if it was necessary to inspect or repair a sewer connection. Imagine a city inspector today having the legal power to walk into your home at any time to check your plumbing, and you begin to grasp the seriousness with which Rome treated this system. This was public utility enforced with imperial power, a recognition that the health of the individual was irrevocably tied to the health of the city. Below these administrators were the true heroes of the underworld, the cloacarii. These were the maintenance crews, the men who did the unimaginable work. Their task was to keep the channels clear. They navigated the dark, confined tunnels, often by small boat, armed with hooks, rakes, and shovels. Their mission was to find and remove the inevitable blockages, the piles of debris, silt, and solid waste that could dam the flow and cause dangerous backups in the streets above. The conditions were beyond grim. They worked in near-total darkness, their way lit only by flickering oil lamps that consumed the precious oxygen. The air was thick with toxic fumes, a foul mixture of methane and hydrogen sulfide, the infamous rotten egg gas that could overwhelm a man in minutes. The risk of collapse, drowning, or disease was constant. This was not a job for the faint of heart. It was a brutal, essential service performed by slaves, condemned criminals, or the desperately poor. Yet, the very fact that these crews existed and operated regularly is a profound testament to Roman commitment. They did not build the sewer and forget it. They invested continuously in its upkeep, understanding that the glory of the city above depended entirely on the grueling, unseen labor in the dark below. The curators provided the organization and authority, and the cloacarii provided the sweat and courage, a partnership that kept the lifeblood of the city flowing for centuries. This elegant synergy reveals the true genius of Roman hydraulic engineering. The mighty aqueducts and the deep sewers were not separate projects. They were two halves of a single, brilliant cycle. The aqueducts brought a constant torrent of fresh, clean water into the city, an estimated 1 million cubic meters every single day. But what happened to all that water after it was used? This is where the design becomes a closed loop. The overflow from countless public fountains, the drained basins of the monumental baths, and most importantly, the continuous stream flowing through the public latrines. All of this used water had a designated path. It was channeled directly into the waiting mouths of the sewer system. This constant influx served a critical purpose. It provided the hydraulic force to flush the solid wastes along. Think of it not as a modern toilet with a pressurized flush, but as a never-ending, gentle river within the stone channels. A current strong enough to carry the city's refuse on a one-way journey to the Tiber. This created a sustainable, gravity-powered cycle that was unprecedented in the ancient world. Fresh water flowed in from the hills via aqueduct, was used by the population, and then its spent force was harnessed to clean the city, all driven by nothing but slope and clever design. It was a perpetual motion machine of public health. This synergy was absolutely crucial for urban density. Rome packed over 1 million people into a relatively small space, a recipe for catastrophic disease in any other ancient city. The constant flow of water through the sewers prevented the stagnation that bred plagues. It meant that the waste of a vast population was not piling up in streets or cesspits, but was being actively, continuously removed. The aqueducts gave the sewers their purpose and their power, and the sewers gave the aqueducts their necessary exit. One system could not have functioned so effectively without the other. This was holistic urban planning on a scale the world would not see again for over 1,000 years. The fresh, sparkling water pouring from a fountain in the Forum was intrinsically linked to the dark, flowing river beneath it, a partnership of light and shadow that made the crowded, vibrant, and surprisingly clean city of Rome possible. This seamless cycle of water found its most public and social expression in the Roman toilet. Across the city, in every major neighborhood and public complex, stood the forici, the public latrines. To walk into one was to experience Roman practicality in its most communal form. The typical design was both elegant and efficient. You would enter a well-lit room, often decorated with marble or mosaic floors. Along the walls were rows of seats, usually between 10 and 20, carved from solid marble with comfortable, keyhole-shaped openings. There were no partitions, no stalls for privacy. Sitting here was a collective act. Beneath you, at your feet, ran a shallow, continuous channel of clean, fresh water, diverted directly from the nearest aqueduct. This was the genius of the flush, a constant, gentle stream that swept everything away the moment it dropped, carrying it through an opening in the wall and directly into the waiting sewer line below. For personal cleaning, Romans used a tersorium, a sponge attached to the end of a short stick. These communal sponges rested in a channel of salt water or vinegar running in front of the seats, ready for use. The entire system was a masterpiece of flow, connecting the individual directly to the vast hydraulic network. But the forica was far more than a bathroom. It was a social institution. With no privacy barriers, conversation flowed as freely as the water. Men, and sometimes women in separate facilities, would gather here to discuss politics, share gossip, or conduct business. It was a place to see and be seen, a democratic space where a senator might sit next to a shopkeeper, both sharing in the same basic civic amenity. This social function was so important that building and maintaining these latrines became a favored form of public philanthropy. Emperors and wealthy citizens would fund their construction as a gift to the city, earning public goodwill and having their names inscribed above the entrance. In this way, access to sanitation was democratized. Even the poorest Roman living in a cramped insula apartment, which rarely had private facilities, could walk to a public forica and benefit from the same hygienic system as the elite. This was revolutionary. It turned a private bodily function into a public, communal, and even civic experience. Every visit to the Foraca was a direct contribution to the city's health, a personal participation in the grand engineering cycle. The waste you produced was not a problem to be hidden, but a material to be managed, instantly captured by the flowing water and sent on its journey to the Tiber. The chatter, the business deals, the shared sponges, all of it happened atop a humming hydraulic machine, a daily reminder that in Rome, even the most mundane act was woven into the fabric of a greater, functioning whole. But for every citizen enjoying the public foraca, there was a starkly different reality waiting at home. The gleaming marble and flowing water of the latrines represented an ideal, but the day-to-day sanitation of Rome was deeply divided along lines of wealth and class. In the sprawling, single-story villas of the elite, the domus engineers installed a private version of the public system. These homes often featured their own latrines, usually located near the kitchen for easy water access. Waste would drop into a cesspit below, but the clever part was the connection. Builders ran pipes, made from either terracotta or expensive lead, from these pits out under the foundation walls to link up with the public sewer lines running beneath the street. This was not a free service. Homeowners paid a special tax, the cloacarium, for the privilege of connecting their private waste to the public good. It was a status symbol, a literal pipe of privilege that carried filth from your home directly into the empire's veins, sparing you the walk to the public facilities. The situation grew far more precarious in the insulae, the towering, rickety apartment blocks where the vast majority of Rome's population lived. These buildings, often 6 or 7 stories high and notoriously poorly built, rarely had any internal plumbing connections. For the families crammed into upper floor rooms, the solution was a simple and humble vessel, the chamber pot. Each morning, the contents of these pots had to be disposed of. The most responsible residents would carry them down to the street level and empty them into large communal cesspits, which were periodically cleaned out by workers. But the temptation for a quicker, easier solution was overwhelming. It was all too common for someone to simply open a window and toss the contents into the street below, leading to the famous Roman curse, caveat emptor, let the buyer beware, which originally warned pedestrians to watch out for falling waste from above. This created a constant foul layer in the narrow alleyways, a problem the grand sewers beneath the main streets could never solve. The advanced engineering of the Cloaca Maxima, for all its brilliance, was a backbone, not a capillary system. It served the grand public spaces and the main thoroughfares, but it could not reach into every cramped, private corner of the city. So a profound inequality persisted. The wealthy enjoyed a clean, convenient, and tax-funded link to the imperial infrastructure. The poor navigated a daily chore that kept their homes tolerable but poisoned their shared environment. This gap meant that despite the marvel underground, the streets of Rome could still be filthy and dangerous, a lingering testament to the limits of even the most ambitious ancient engineering when faced with the sheer scale of urban poverty. This grand hydraulic cycle had a final, undeniable destination. All those converging streams from the Cloaca Maxima and its tributaries poured their contents directly into the river Tiber. For the Romans, this was the perfect solution, a natural endpoint where the city's burdens were carried away by a powerful, God-given current. The river was not just a body of water, it was the ultimate sanitation worker, accepting the empire's waste and transporting it far downstream, out of sight and out of mind. This logic created a profound and troubling paradox. The very engineering that kept Rome's streets relatively clean and its citizens healthy was, in effect, transforming the Tiber into an open sewer. The environmental impact was staggering. Every day, the waste of over 1 million people flowed into the river, completely untreated. This was not just human sewage. The outflow included the toxic byproducts of urban industry. Tanneries, which used urine and harsh chemicals to treat hides, dumped their foul runoff. Fulleries, the ancient laundries that used human urine as a degreasing agent for cleaning wool, flushed their vats into the system. The Tiber became a soup of biological and chemical waste, a far cry from the pristine river that had once watered the early settlement. The consequences were felt most acutely by the communities living downstream from the city. For them, the Tiber was not a symbol of cleansing, but a source of stench and sickness. The water would have been thick and discolored, carrying a palpable odor that marked the air for miles. This pollution posed severe health risks. Downstream villages that relied on the river for drinking, cooking, or irrigation were unknowingly exposing themselves to a cocktail of pathogens that could cause dysentery, typhoid, and other waterborne diseases. The Roman achievement of urban cleanliness was, in a very real sense, achieved by exporting the filth and its dangers to someone else. It was a case of solving a local problem by creating a regional one. How did the Romans themselves perceive this? Remarkably, they seemed to view the river's capacity not as pollution, but as an extension of their own engineering genius. The Tiber was not being poisoned, it was being put to work. Its natural flow was harnessed as the final, gravity-powered component of the system. In their worldview, the river's god, Tiberinus, was participating in the great work of Roman order. The river's ability to absorb and carry away the city's output was seen as evidence of its strength and utility, a divine partnership in maintaining the city's sanctity. They likely reasoned that the vast volume of the river, especially during seasonal floods, would dilute the waste to harmlessness. This perspective reveals a fundamental difference in ancient environmental thinking. There was no concept of a downstream ecosystem or a closed water cycle. The world was vast, and nature's capacity to absorb human activity seemed limitless. The river was a tool, and a tool that never filled up was a perfect one. So the great achievement of Roman sewer engineering culminated in this silent, flowing sacrifice. The sparkling fountains and clean public latrines of the world's greatest city came at a cost paid by the waters of the Tiber, a hidden trade-off between urban health and environmental health that echoes into our own modern conversations about where exactly our waste is meant to go. Keeping this vast, dark network flowing was a battle fought in shadows. The Cloaca, the maintenance crews, were Rome's subterranean soldiers, armed not with swords, but with simple, brutal tools. Their primary weapons were long poles tipped with iron hooks and wide, heavy nets. Working from small boats or wading through the shallow flow, they would probe the murky water, feeling for the obstructions that threatened to choke the city's veins. They hauled out everything, tangled masses of rags and debris, hardened silt, and the inevitable solid waste that settled in slower moving sections. This was manual labor of the most grueling kind, a constant physical struggle against the accumulating filth of 1 million people. But the Romans also employed hydraulic ingenuity. They understood the power of the water they commanded. Periodically, sluice gates at key aqueduct junctions could be manipulated to create a controlled surge. A sudden rush of clean water sent coursing through a targeted sewer line. This artificial flood acted like a giant flush, scouring the channel walls and pushing accumulated debris toward the main outflow. It was a clever use of their own infrastructure to clean itself. Then there are the stranger tales, the legends that blur the line between practicality and myth. Ancient sources whisper of more unconventional methods. One persistent story claims that live geese were sometimes sent into the narrower tunnels. The idea was that the panicked birds, flapping and scrambling forward, would disturb silt and loosen minor blockages ahead of a cleaning crew. Whether this was ever a standard practice or merely a colorful rumor is lost to time, but it speaks to the desperate creativity that such a foul task might inspire. The dangers these men faced were constant and multifaceted. Tunnel collapses were an ever-present threat. The weight of the city above, seismic tremors, or simply the erosion of old mortar could bring tons of stone and earth down without warning. Silt was a silent enemy, gradually filling channels and reducing their capacity, requiring endless dredging. But the most insidious killer was invisible. In the stagnant, airless depths, organic matter decomposed and released toxic gases, primarily hydrogen sulfide. This colorless vapor, smelling of rotten eggs, is a potent poison. A few deep breaths could overwhelm a worker, causing dizziness, collapse, and swift death. The flickering oil lamps they carried for light were a double-edged sword, as the open flames could ignite pockets of flammable methane. Every shift in the gloom was a gamble with suffocation, explosion, or a sudden, crushing burial. This was not a job, it was a sentence, performed by those with no other choice to ensure the city above could breathe clean air and walk on dry streets. Theirs was the ultimate hidden sacrifice, a life spent battling the literal darkness so Rome could remain in the light. The sewers were more than just tunnels, they were the literal bedrock of the city. This hidden network did not merely run beneath Rome, it actively supported the weight of its greatest monuments. Engineers understood that the massive, vaulted stone channels of the Cloaca Maxima and its main branches possessed incredible structural strength. When planning new public buildings, they did not see these sewers as obstacles to be avoided, but as pre-built foundations to be exploited. The most famous example lies in the heart of the Forum. The Basilica Aemilia, a grand public hall used for banking and commerce, was constructed directly over a section of the Great Sewer. The builders did not divert the Cloaca Maxima. Instead, they integrated its sturdy, stone-lined walls into the very foundation of their new structure. The sewer's roof became part of the basilica's floor. Its side walls became load-bearing elements within the complex basement. This was a masterstroke of pragmatic engineering. It saved an enormous amount of labor and material, as they did not have to dig and lay an entirely new foundation from scratch. More importantly, it provided unparalleled stability. The sewer channel, designed to withstand the constant pressure of earth and flowing water, offered a rock-solid base upon which to stack tons of marble and travertine. This practice was not limited to one building. Across Rome, major constructions were strategically aligned with or placed atop these subterranean arteries. The thinking was brilliantly economical. The sewer lines represented the most heavily engineered, reinforced parts of the underground landscape. Building upon them was like building upon a spine of stone already fused to the earth. It also solved a critical urban planning problem. In a crowded city center, space above ground was precious, and the space below was already a tangled web of tunnels, graves, and earlier foundations. By using the sewers as a guide and a support, architects could anchor their ambitious projects to the most reliable elements of the city's hidden anatomy. This integration reveals a profound truth about Roman urban design. The visible and invisible cities were not separate entities. They were fused into a single, interdependent organism. the glittering facade of the Basilica Aemilia, where senators negotiated and coins changed hands, depended for its very existence on the silent, dark flow of water beneath its floor. The sewer was not an afterthought buried and forgotten. It was a chosen partner in construction, a hidden skeleton that determined the shape and strength of the muscles and skin built upon it. Every time a Roman walked across the polished floor of a great basilica, they were walking on the roof of a world that kept their city standing and kept it clean. Yet this underworld of stone and water held a far darker purpose than mere maintenance. The same channels that kept the city clean became the perfect setting for crime and punishment, a hidden theater for Rome's most brutal acts. For criminals on the run, the sewers offered an escape route no patrol could easily follow. Thieves could vanish into a grate with their stolen goods, moving unseen beneath the markets and temples they had plundered. During political unrest or military sieges, these tunnels became clandestine highways for spies or assassins. There are accounts of besiegers attempting to mine under city walls, only to find their tunnels intercepted by the ready-made passages of the sewer system, turning an engineering marvel into a defensive vulnerability. But the darkest tales involve the sewers not as a refuge, but as a grave. One of the most gruesome legends surrounds the young Emperor Elagabalus, a ruler known for his eccentric and scandalous behavior. After his assassination by the Praetorian Guard in the year 222, the story goes that his mutilated body was denied proper burial. Instead, it was dragged through the streets and then dumped into the Cloaca Maxima, a final, horrific insult meant to erase him from memory by consigning him to the city's filth. Whether entirely true or partly symbolic, the story captures how the sewer represented the absolute opposite of Roman dignity, a place for what society wanted to utterly destroy and forget. This concept was formalized in one of Rome's most notorious legal punishments, the pona cullae, the punishment of the sack. Reserved for the ultimate crime of parricide, the murder of a parent, the sentence was a blend of ritual and horror. The condemned would be severely beaten, then sewn into a leather sack together with a live dog, a rooster, a snake, and a monkey. This grotesque bundle was then thrown into the depths of the Tiber River. And often, the means of delivery was the Cloaca Maxima itself. The convict would be forced into the sewer's mouth and carried by the current out into the river, a journey from the city's bowels into the watery abyss. This was more than execution. It was a profound act of purification through inversion. The criminal who had violated the most sacred family bond was expelled from the human community via the same channel that expelled the city's waste. He was made one with the filth, his life ending in the same dark flow that sustained the city's life. In these acts, the sewer transcended engineering. It became a psychological and moral instrument, a tool of ultimate justice that leveraged the deepest Roman fears of contamination and disorder. The clean, ordered city above demanded a dark mirror below, a place where the human refuse of crime could be disposed of with the same ruthless efficiency as any other waste. The same engineering principles that flushed the streets of Rome became a blueprint for civilization itself, exported to every corner of the empire. Wherever the legions marched and established a permanent settlement, the surveyors and engineers followed, bringing with them the non-negotiable standards of Roman urban life. A conquered territory was not truly pacified until it was civilized, and civilization, to a Roman, required a proper sewer. Provincial capitals became showcases for this hydraulic imperialism. Take Londinium, the bustling port on the River Thames. After its destruction during the Boudiccan Revolt, the Romans rebuilt it with a master plan that included a sophisticated drainage network. They constructed a massive main sewer over 1 meter wide, built from timber and stone, which ran directly beneath the main east-west road, channeling waste from public baths and latrines straight into the Thames. This was not a crude ditch. It was a deliberate import of metropolitan order, signaling that this was now a permanent Roman city, not a temporary military camp. Far to the south, in the city of Lugdunum, modern-day Lyon in France, engineers faced a different challenge. The city was built on a steep peninsula at the confluence of two powerful rivers, the Rhône and the Seine. Here, the Romans constructed an intricate system of drainage channels that cleverly used the dramatic slope to their advantage, preventing erosion and managing stormwater with gravity-fed precision. They adapted to the local terrain, but the underlying logic was purely Roman. Perhaps one of the most impressive provincial systems was in Colonia Claudia Ara Agrippinensium, today's Cologne in Germany. This city, founded as a colony for retired legionaries, was equipped with a sewer network so advanced and well-built that sections of it remained in use for over 1,000 years, well into the Middle Ages. Its construction broadcast a powerful message to the local Germanic tribes. This was a place of permanent order, hygiene, and imperial power. The adaptation to local conditions is a key part of the story. In regions without abundant volcanic ash for concrete, engineers used what they had. In Britannia, they lined channels with tight-fitting oak planks or local stone. In arid provinces, they designed systems to conserve and channel precious rainwater for flushing. But the core idea remained unchanged: a dedicated, gravity-fed underground channel for waste and runoff was essential for any settlement that wished to call itself a city. This infrastructure was a fundamental tool of Romanization. It was a physical, undeniable fact on the ground that taught a daily lesson. To live in a Roman city was to benefit from its cleanliness and public health, to participate in its communal spaces like the public baths and latrines, and to accept the Roman worldview that order must be imposed upon nature. The sewer was a silent teacher, instructing conquered peoples in the practical benefits of belonging to the empire. Building and maintaining these systems also created a shared technical language and administrative framework, binding provincial engineers and laborers to the methods of Rome. So when we find the stone-lined gutters beneath a London street or the vaulted drains under a Cologne square, we are finding more than old pipes. We are finding the physical signature of an imperial idea, the belief that urban life, wherever it took root, required this one hidden, flowing foundation. That brilliant, flowing blueprint did not survive the empire that created it. With the slow collapse of centralized Roman authority, the meticulous state machinery that maintained the sewers began to grind to a halt. The curators cloacarum vanished, their budgets and legal authority dissolving into the chaos of a fragmenting world. The specialized crews of cloacarii were disbanded, their gruesome but vital knowledge no longer commanded or compensated. Without this organized, funded, and relentless upkeep, the magnificent system was doomed. The channels, deprived of their regular cleaning, began to silt up. Blockages formed and were left to harden into dams. In some sections, the gentle, gravity-fed slope was overcome by accumulated debris, causing stagnant pools that further accelerated the decay. The great Cloaca Maxima, once a roaring subterranean river, dwindled to a sluggish, choked trickle. Its mighty arch where it met the Tiber, once a symbol of imperial power, became clogged with centuries of neglect, a stone mouth slowly being sealed by its own filth. This physical decay mirrored a profound intellectual loss. The sophisticated engineering principles behind the network, the understanding of gradients, waterproof concrete, and integrated urban planning faded from common knowledge. The great medieval cities that later rose, like Paris, London, and Rome itself, largely abandoned the systematic city-wide sewer. They reverted to a far simpler and far more dangerous model. Waste management became a private, haphazard affair. Most households relied on cesspits, simple holes dug in the ground near their homes. These pits would fill up and then have to be emptied by night soil collectors, a foul and expensive service. The overflow and the waste from those who could not afford the service simply seeped into the soil, contaminating the groundwater. What public drainage existed was often just open gutters running down the center of narrow streets, meant for rain but serving as open sewers for every manner of refuse. These fetid streams would flow until they reached a nearby river or simply pooled in the lowest part of town. The consequences of this regression were written in the suffering of the population. The crowded medieval city became a perfect breeding ground for pestilence. Without a constant flow of water to remove waste, pathogens thrived. Contaminated water sources, fouled by seepage from countless cesspits, led to relentless outbreaks of dysentery and typhoid. The infamous Black Death of the 14th century found a Europe with profoundly degraded urban hygiene, where rats and fleas proliferated in the accumulated filth. The connection between cleanliness and health, so intuitively understood by Roman planners, was lost. Disease was seen as a spiritual or astrological affliction, not a consequence of failed infrastructure. Meanwhile, the physical remains of the Roman system were not gone. They were misunderstood. The Cloaca Maxima, now mostly buried and silent, passed into legend. To the medieval Romans living above it, the occasional accessible fragment of its massive stone vaulting seemed the work of giants or mythical heroes. It was a relic of a lost, more advanced age, its true purpose obscured by time and dirt. It became a dark, mysterious cave in stories, not a celebrated public work. This transformation from engineering to mythology is perhaps the most telling sign of the knowledge that was lost. A practical solution to a fundamental human problem had become a subject for superstition and fear. This stark contrast between Roman order and medieval disorder highlights a terrifying truth about technological knowledge. It is not self-sustaining. A brilliant invention, even one as transformative as a city-wide sewer, is fragile. It requires a stable, wealthy, and organized society to build it, fund its maintenance, and transmit the specialized skills needed to keep it running. When the Roman state withered away, that supporting ecosystem vanished. The technology, divorced from the bureaucracy and economic system that nurtured it, became a useless, buried skeleton. The medieval world did not choose to live in filth. It inherited a broken system whose operating manual had been burned with the fall of the empire. The story of the sewers is a powerful lesson in the invisible threads that bind knowledge to power, engineering to administration, and public health to the enduring strength of the public good. Centuries later, a new kind of light pierced the ancient darkness. The Renaissance, a period obsessed with recovering the lost wisdom of Rome, turned its gaze not only to statues and manuscripts, but to the underworld itself. For artists and architects, the Cloaca Maxima was no longer a place of fear or superstition, but a classroom. They descended into its echoing vaults with torches and sketchpads, not as maintenance crews, but as pilgrims of engineering. The great painter Raphael, appointed as the chief architect of St. Peter's Basilica, was one such explorer. He ventured into the sewers to study their construction, understanding that to build anew for his own age, he first had to comprehend the foundations of the old. He was followed by architects like Antonio da Sangallo the Younger, who meticulously measured and drew the stonework. These were not casual visits. They produced detailed sketches, marveling at the precision of the stone joints, the elegant curve of the vaults, and the sheer endurance of the mortar. To these Renaissance minds, the sewer was a masterpiece of a different kind, a testament to Roman rationality and strength that had literally withstood the test of time. This physical reconnection with Roman infrastructure sparked a revolution in thinking. The sketches and reports that emerged from these expeditions circulated among scholars and builders. They provided irrefutable, tangible proof of Roman engineering genius, far more persuasive than any ancient text. It demonstrated that Roman greatness was not just in philosophy or art, but in the profoundly practical science of public works. This rediscovery directly fed the era's growing interest in utopian city planning. Visionaries began drafting ideal cities with wide, straight streets, ample public spaces, and crucially, with efficient drainage and water supply systems inspired by the Roman model. The Cloaca Maxima became a benchmark, a concrete example that a city could be both beautiful and healthy, that grandeur and sanitation were not opposites but partners. This shift was profound. It helped lay the intellectual groundwork for the great public health reforms that would slowly emerge in the centuries to follow. The Renaissance didn't just resurrect Roman art, it resurrected the Roman ideal of the city as an engineered organism. And it all began with brave men holding torches aloft in the damp, forgotten rivers beneath their feet. The dark, silent channels that once carried away Rome's refuse have become, centuries later, a vault of unimaginable wealth. Modern archaeology has turned its attention to the hardened silt and sediment at the bottom of these ancient sewers, and what they find is not just waste, but a lost world in miniature. When excavating sites like the drains beneath the Roman baths or the public latrines, archaeologists carefully sift through layers of compacted muck. Their screens catch the glint of bronze and gold, coins dropped by a bather reaching for his towel. They uncover delicate jewelry, a bone hairpin or a glass bead from a broken necklace, lost forever down a drain. They find pottery shards from broken cups and oil lamps, discarded tools, and even children's toys. Perhaps most telling are the organic remains, the seeds, pits, and bones that reveal the Roman diet with startling intimacy. This field, sometimes called garbology, treats ancient garbage as a primary source. It provides a snapshot of daily life that is completely unfiltered by time's bias. Grand monuments and official histories were created by and for the elite, meant to project power and ideology, but the sewer does not lie. It collected the accidental losses of everyone, from the senator to the slave, preserving a democratic record of the mundane. A single layer of sediment can tell a story of commerce, revealing coins from different emperors and mints that show how money circulated. The food waste speaks of imports and local fare, showing that someone in Londinium could enjoy Mediterranean olives, or that a tavern in Pompeii served a particular type of shellfish. A broken stylus and a wax tablet blank found in a drain might hint at the literacy of a shopkeeper. This is history written not in marble, but in the lost and the discarded, offering a whisper of ordinary voices from the silence of the past. But what if we could read that story not just in lost objects, but in the very molecules of the waste itself? The hardened muck of Roman sewers is now yielding secrets on a microscopic level, creating a biological archive of an entire civilization. Scientists have begun extracting long, cylindrical sediment cores from the bottoms of ancient drains and latrines, and within these unassuming plugs of compacted filth lies a revolutionary record. By analyzing these cores with modern tools, researchers are reconstructing the invisible world of Roman daily life with astonishing precision. One of the most direct windows into public health comes from searching for ancient parasite eggs. These microscopic shells, produced by intestinal worms, are incredibly durable. In samples from across the empire, from York to Jerusalem, scientists consistently find eggs from roundworms and whipworms. This tells a stark story. Despite their advanced sanitation, Romans lived in a constant, intimate relationship with these parasites. The eggs spread through contaminated food, water, or soil, and once established in a human gut, the worms would steal nutrients, causing anemia, stunted growth in children, and chronic discomfort. The very design of the sewers, which relied on human waste to be flushed into the river, likely contributed to this cycle, as downstream water sources could become contaminated. Finding these eggs in such abundance is a sobering reminder that Roman engineering, for all its grandeur, could not create a sterile world. The research goes deeper into the realm of genetics. Scientists are now able to extract and sequence ancient bacterial DNA preserved in the sewer sediments. This allows them to map the microbiome of the city itself, identifying the populations of bacteria that lived in the Roman gut. By comparing this ancient microbial profile to modern ones, they can trace the evolution of human digestion and even identify shifts related to changes in diet over centuries. But the chemical analysis reveals perhaps the most surprising details. Using a technique called gas chromatography mass spectrometry, researchers can detect the faint chemical residues of foods and medicines that pass through the Roman population. They have identified traces of exotic spices like turmeric and ginger in British samples, spices that had to travel thousands of miles from India. This turns a lump of sewer sediment into a document of global trade, proving that the taste for luxury flavors permeated society enough to show up in its collective waste. They can also see evidence of herbal remedies, like traces of mint or fenugreek, used to treat digestive ailments. This multi-layered analysis transforms our understanding. We are no longer just looking at what the Romans built or wrote. We are examining what they excreted. Every core sample is a time capsule of public health, global economics, and daily struggle. It reveals a population battling unseen invaders with every meal, yet connected to markets on the other side of the known world. The grandeur of Rome, it seems, was built by people who were, in a very literal sense, full of worms and spices, a humbling and profoundly human detail preserved in the last place anyone would think to look for history. Their precision defies simple explanation. How did Roman engineers, without a single laser or transit, achieve the perfect, gentle slope needed for a sewer to flow for miles? Their most trusted tool was the corbets, a deceptively simple wooden table over 6 meters long. On its top ran a narrow, precisely carved channel. To use it, the surveyor would fill this groove with water. By observing the water's surface, which always finds a perfect level, he could sight along the table and check the grade of the land or a freshly dug trench. If wind made the water ripple, he could use a set of plumb lines hanging from the frame as a backup. This tool, combined with the groma for aligning straight lines, gave them the basic data. But the true challenge was applying that data over undulating terrain, ensuring a consistent drop from the Forum all the way to the Tiber. The likely answer is a relentless process of incremental checking and correction. Teams of surveyors would have worked in tandem, one establishing a benchmark point at the highest elevation, another working far downstream. They would have used a series of intermediary posts and sight lines, constantly verifying the fall. It was a physical, labor-intensive form of calculus, where human eyes and simple tools performed the work of a modern computer. Mistakes would have been catastrophic, causing blockages or dangerous backups, so the pressure for accuracy was immense. This suggests a culture of extreme diligence, where an engineer's reputation rested on a channel that flowed without fail for a century. Ventilation in those confined, deepening tunnels presents another stark mystery. As crews dug further from an entrance shaft, the air would have grown thick with dust, and later, during use, lethal with trapped gases. During construction, they likely relied on the most basic method of all, convection. By digging multiple access shafts along the proposed route, they created a chimney effect. Air, heated by workers' bodies and lamps, would rise out of one shaft, drawing fresher air in through another. They might have used canvas bellows or even simple fans made of bundled reeds to push air forward into the dead ends. But the evidence hints at something more sophisticated. Some larger sewer tunnels show signs of side channels or regularly spaced vertical shafts that seem too narrow for human passage. These could have served as dedicated ventilation ducts, a deliberate design feature to create a constant draft. It was a battle against an invisible enemy, fought with fire and airflow, where a single misstep could suffocate a work crew in minutes. Coordinating thousands of laborers, stonemasons, and carpenters across a vast city project without radios or blueprints seems an impossible feat. The Roman secret was not a tool, but a system, a brutal hierarchy of clear roles and relentless oversight. At the top sat the engineer, the architectus, a man expected to understand mathematics, mechanics, and logistics. He created the overall plan, likely using detailed wax tablets or even scaled models made of wood or clay. Beneath him were the librators, the surveyors who translated the plan onto the actual landscape, marking the route with stakes and string. Then came the foreman, the praefecti fabrum, who managed the individual work gangs. These gangs were highly specialized. One group did nothing but excavate, another mixed mortar, another shaped stones, another laid the masonry. This division of labor turned an impossibly complex project into a series of repetitive, manageable tasks. Communication was physical and visual. A system of horn blasts or runner messengers likely signaled shift changes or the delivery of materials. The project's progress was tracked through daily reports delivered up the chain, and the engineer would walk the site constantly, inspecting work and solving problems on the spot. This structure was military in its precision, born from the Roman army's own legendary skill at building forts and roads in hostile territory. It was project management powered by human voice, sharp eyes, and the unyielding discipline of an imperial command. They compensated for a lack of technology with an overabundance of organization, turning chaos into a controlled, rhythmic process where every man knew his place and his task. The silent, enduring sewer is the ultimate testament to the power of that order. That silent partnership with the Tiber River was not always a peaceful one. The very system designed to protect Rome from water could, in moments of crisis, turn against it. The relationship between the Cloaca Maxima and the river's notorious floods is a complex engineering puzzle. On one hand, the sewer network was a masterstroke of local flood prevention. By swiftly channeling rainwater runoff from the Seven Hills underground, it stopped the low-lying Forum and Subura district from reverting to the marsh they once were. A heavy summer downpour that would have turned streets into rivers was instead captured and directed away. But this efficiency created a dangerous dependency. All those channels, from the great trunk of the Cloaca Maxima to hundreds of smaller tributaries, had one ultimate destination, the Tiber. During normal conditions, this was a perfect solution. Yet the Tiber was a temperamental giant, prone to sudden, violent floods from winter rains and snowmelt in the Apennine Mountains. When the river swelled, it would rise far above its normal banks and, crucially, above the level of the sewer outfalls. Imagine trying to pour water from a bottle into a glass that is already overflowing. The mouth of the Cloaca Maxima, where it emptied into the river, would become submerged. With the exit blocked by the floodwaters, the entire system could back up. The water rushing down from the hills would have nowhere to go. It would surge back through the tunnels, seeking any outlet. Manhole covers in the streets would lift, and filthy water would fountain into basements and ground floor rooms. In these extreme events, the sewers did not cause the flood, but they could tragically amplify its damage, funneling the inundation directly into the city's heart. Historical records from writers like Tacitus and Cassius Dio describe floods so severe that people navigated boats between the temples of the Forum. While these accounts rarely blame the sewers directly, the pattern is telling. The worst flooding often affected the oldest parts of the city, precisely where the sewer network was most dense and its outfalls most vulnerable. Modern engineering studies suggest another, slower danger. The constant, concentrated discharge from the sewer mouths likely accelerated erosion of the riverbank just downstream, subtly undermining the natural levee that contained the Tiber and potentially making certain spots more prone to breach over centuries. The Romans were not blind to these limitations. Their solution was not to abandon the sewer system, but to supplement it with other massive public works. They built and maintained substantial embankment walls, or miniana, along critical stretches of the river within the city. They also dug diversion channels upstream, like the Fossa Traiana, to siphon off excess water before it reached Rome. This reveals a nuanced, layered approach to water management. The sewers handled the daily, predictable hydrology of the urban landscape. The walls and canals were the emergency response for the unpredictable fury of the river. It was a recognition that no single system, no matter how brilliant, could conquer nature entirely. The true engineering genius lay in this combination, a multi-layered defense that understood both the power of a steady flow and the terror of a sudden deluge. But even the most rational empire could not silence the whispers in the dark. Where engineers saw a triumph of order, the common citizen heard a different story, one told in shadows and echoes. The Cloaca Maxima was not just a sewer, it was a liminal space, a threshold where the clean, sunlit world of law and marble met the formless, wet chaos of the underworld. And in such spaces, the human mind conjures monsters. The most enduring of these legends was Cloacina, a spirit whose very name meant of the sewer. She began as a goddess of the filth itself, a guardian of the flowing waters who ensured they did not back up and flood the city above. Romans would make offerings to her, small tokens tossed into a grate, a plea to keep the hidden currents moving. But here is where the story twists, revealing a profound cultural impulse. Over time, this goddess of the muck was syncretized, or merged, with none other than Venus, the goddess of love, beauty, and fertility. How could these two possibly be connected? The link is transformative power. Just as Venus represented the creative force of life, Cloacina represented the transformative force of decay. The sewer took what was waste, what was dead and discarded, and through its flowing waters, broke it down and carried it away, making space for new life above. She was the necessary, if unglamorous, counterpart to Venus's brilliance, the cleaner of the slate so creation could begin again. This merging of a sewer spirit with the empire's premier goddess of love is a startling act of psychological alchemy. It was a way to domesticate the terrifying, to find a sacred purpose in the process of decay, and to integrate the city's darkest necessity into its highest pantheon. Other tales were less philosophical and more visceral. Whispers spoke of the tunnels as the lair of monstrous creatures. Some stories told of giant, blind fish that had evolved in the perpetual darkness, grown fat on the waste of the city. Others spoke of serpents or dragons, classic chthonic beasts, that made their nests in the deepest, oldest sumps. The most haunting legend was of a giantess, a ragged female specter who would appear to those who ventured too far into the tunnels, her form shimmering in the damp air before she dragged the intruder into the black water. These were not just campfire stories, they were expressions of deep-seated cultural anxiety. The sewer was the absolute antithesis of the Roman ideal. Above ground was Civita's civilization, characterized by light, order, law, and purity. Below was its shadow, a realm of darkness, formlessness, decay, and moral pollution. It was where the physical and social filth of the city pooled. Criminals used it, the bodies of the disgraced were dumped in it, and it carried the invisible seeds of disease. To imagine monsters, there was to give a face to that fear, to make the abstract threat of contamination and social collapse into something you could, in theory, fight or flee. This folklore served a crucial purpose. It marked the boundary. By telling stories of Cloaca Venus or the sewer giantess, Romans were psychologically mapping a dangerous frontier. These myths acted as warning signs, saying, "This far and no further." They reinforced the idea that the world below was fundamentally different, ruled by different laws, inhabited by different beings. It was a space that required respect, appeasement, and, for most people, absolute avoidance. This narrative containment allowed the city to function. They could enjoy the clean streets and public baths precisely because they had mythologized the ugly machinery that made it possible, pushing it into the realm of the supernatural. The engineering marvel was also a cultural pressure valve, a dark mirror that reflected everything Rome feared about itself, its own capacity for waste, corruption, and decay. The next time you walk over a city grate, listen for a moment. The rush you hear is not just water, it is the echo of an ancient story, the sound of an empire trying to convince itself that the monsters it created were still just barely under control. Roman engineering did not emerge in a vacuum. Across the ancient world, other brilliant civilizations were also wrestling with the same fundamental problem of managing water and waste. To understand what truly set Rome apart, we must glance at its contemporaries. Over 200 years before the Cloaca Maxima, the cities of the Indus Valley civilization, like Mohenjo-Daro, boasted an astonishing system. Nearly every house had its own bathroom, with terracotta pipes that carried waste into covered street drains, which then flowed into larger brick-lined sewers. Some homes even featured seated toilets with a rudimentary water flush mechanism. This was domestic sanitation on a level Rome would not match for private residences. Yet, this system, while incredibly advanced, seemed to serve individual homes and neighborhoods rather than being part of a grand, city-wide hydraulic cycle. It was a masterpiece of municipal planning, but not necessarily of imperial integration. Far to the west, on the island of Crete, the Minoans built elaborate palace complexes around 1600 years before the Common Era. At the Palace of Knossos, archaeologists found sophisticated stone drainage channels that carried away rainwater and waste, with sections that could be opened for cleaning. They even had a form of a flushing toilet, with a wooden seat and a conduit for pouring water to wash waste into a drain. This was luxury and cleverness on a palatial scale, but again, it served the elite in their central complexes, not the entire urban population. Meanwhile, in the celebrated cultures of ancient Greece and Egypt, the approach was often far more basic. In classical Athens, the norm for most citizens was the chamber pot, emptied into a household cesspit or, all too often, directly into the street. While Athens had some public latrines and drainage channels by the Hellenistic period, there was no coordinated, city-wide sewer network. In Egypt, the focus was overwhelmingly on the life-giving Nile, with irrigation canals paramount. Waste management remained largely a private affair, with cesspits being the common solution. So what made Rome's system distinct, and in many ways unprecedented? It was a combination of three revolutionary factors. First, the sheer scale. Rome applied its sewer technology not to a single palace or even one city, but systematically across an empire spanning 3 continents. From the damp climate of Britannia to the arid hills of Judea, the standard of a stone-lined, gravity-fed sewer became a non-negotiable mark of a Roman city. Second, and most critically, was the integration. Unlike the isolated drains of Mohenjo-Daro or the palace plumbing of the Minoans, the Roman sewer was just one half of a closed hydraulic loop. It was designed from the start to work in tandem with the aqueducts. The constant influx of fresh water provided the force to flush the sewers, creating a self-reinforcing cycle of supply and removal that no other ancient civilization engineered on a metropolitan level. Finally, it was a matter of policy. The Roman sewer was not just an engineering feat, it was an act of state. It was built by imperial decree, funded by the treasury or wealthy patrons, maintained by a dedicated government office, and enforced by law. It was a public good, an infrastructure intended to serve the populace and bind the empire together under a common standard of urban life. Where others built brilliant solutions, Rome built a system, and then replicated that system relentlessly across the known world. Their genius was not in inventing the idea of a drain, but in weaving it into the very fabric of an imperial civilization, making the flow of water and the removal of waste a foundational principle of power itself. The stone mouth of the Cloaca Maxima still yawns open into the Tiber. 2,500 years after its first stones were laid, the great sewer remains a working part of Rome's circulatory system. Its original arched outlet, visible from the riverbank near the Ponte Palatino and the Bocca della Verita, is no museum piece behind glass. It is a living relic. On a dry day, it is a silent, dark cavern of history. But when rain falls on the modern city, a torrent of storm water still rushes from that ancient arch, a testament to engineering so sound it has outlasted every empire built upon it. This is not a ruin, it is infrastructure with a 2 millennia head start. For most of the year, the public interacts with it as a curious landmark, a fragment of the underworld visible from a bridge. But occasionally, the city grants a rare privilege. Through special archaeological tours, small groups of visitors can actually enter the Cloaca Maxima. Equipped with helmets and headlamps, they descend into the cool, damp air, walking on the same stone floor that Roman maintenance crews once trod. The experience is humbling. You are surrounded by the original tufa blocks, their surfaces worn smooth by centuries of flowing water. Yet the massive vaulted ceiling above you is as solid as the day it was sealed. The scale is immediately apparent. A tunnel built not just for function, but for permanence, a space that feels more like a subterranean cathedral than a drain. This ongoing use, however, presents unique preservation challenges. The constant flow of acidic modern water, vibrations from city traffic above, and the inevitable wear of time threaten the very fabric of the monument. Conservationists walk a delicate line. How do you preserve an ancient structure that is still performing its original job? The answer is often a blend of reverence and pragmatism. Repairs use traditional materials and techniques where possible, but modern engineers must also ensure the channel can handle 21st century storm loads without collapsing. This creates a fascinating dialogue across millennia, where the work of Roman builders is actively maintained by their technological descendants. In fact, that dialogue is sometimes shockingly direct. Modern Roman sewer engineers, when planning updates or troubleshooting problems in the historic center, still consult the ancient layouts. The old stone channels, mapped over centuries, reveal the foundational logic of the city's drainage. Understanding where the Romans placed their main arteries helps explain modern water flow patterns and pinpoint where bottlenecks might occur. In a very real sense, the original surveyors are still on the job, their decisions encoded in stone, guiding hands 2,500 years later. This continuity is the system's most profound legacy. The Cloaca Maxima is more than an archaeological wonder. It is a still beating heart in the city's chest. It symbolizes an idea that true engineering is not about building for a generation, but for civilization itself. Every time rain falls on Rome and water pours from that ancient mouth into the Tiber, the past is not silent. It is roaring. The roaring echo from that ancient arch is a voice from the past, a final testament to a civilization that understood cities as living systems. Our journey through the dark has revealed a story far greater than stone and water. From its birth as a simple ditch draining a pestilent swamp, the Cloaca Maxima grew into the hidden spine of an empire. It was never just about waste. It was about the very idea of a city. It was urban planning, carving dry land from marsh to create the Roman Forum. It was public health, a constant, flowing defense against plague. It was social order, with its public latrines acting as democratic spaces and its private connections marking lines of wealth. And ultimately, it was imperial ideology, a blueprint for civilization exported to every corner of the known world, teaching conquered peoples the tangible benefits of Roman rule through clean streets and flowing water. The enduring mystery is not in the grand arches we can still see, but in the quiet precision we cannot. How did they achieve such perfect slopes without modern tools? How did they coordinate thousands of laborers without radios or blueprints? Their genius was a brutal, beautiful alchemy of simple instruments, military discipline, and a relentless drive to impose order on chaos. We must also remember the human cost, the forgotten armies who built and maintained this underworld, the cloacae who breathed toxic air in the darkness so the city above could breathe freely. What would they think, knowing that their grueling, anonymous labor would outlast every emperor, every legion, every temple built from their sweat? Their legacy is not in a statue or a scroll, but in the silent, enduring flow beneath our feet. So the next time you walk down a city street, pause for a moment. Beneath the asphalt and concrete, there is another city, a hidden world of pipes, wires, and tunnels that keeps the modern world alive. Just like the Romans, we depend on invisible systems built by unseen hands. Which ancient engineering marvel, from aqueducts to roads, fascinates you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation flowing.